2, 1. And do you see the recording button?
I do.
Okay, perfect. All right, hello everybody, and thank you so much for joining us today on our Master Gooroo live class. My name is Sue Lee, and I'm the head of growth at Gooroo. It's my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce to you all Erica Duignan. Erica is the managing partner of 1,000 Angels. Thank you so much for joining us today, Erica.
Hey, thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Nice to see you.
Perfect. Yeah, and I know our viewers are really excited to get to know more. So I guess just to start off, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what led to where you are now with 1,000 Angels?
Yeah, sure. So I am founder and managing partner of 1,000 Angels, which is a digital platform that connects high growth, early stage startups with accredited investors who are interested in investing in those startups. I'm also founder and managing partner of Rain Ventures, which is a seed stage fund which also invests in the same type of startups that we invest in at 1,000 Angels. We mainly invest in technology or technology-enabled startups, but we're a little bit of generalists. Really, it's more about working with companies that are raising their first $1 to $5 million in capital. So I've actually been doing seed stage investing professionally since 2006. For 8 years prior to that, I was a traditional investment banking, working in corporate finance, asset management, and also as a fixed income trader at several different investment banks, including Citigroup, Credit Suisse First Boston, and Cantor Fitzgerald. During that time, I also received my MBA in finance from Columbia Business School, where I am still very active in the alumni community, teaching their Intro to Venture Investing for Professional Athletes course and working with the Lang Fund to help them invest in exciting startups coming out of the business school and the undergrad program. So that's a little bit about me. I originally, just on a personal note, I grew up in California, but I was actually born here in New York City. Attended UCLA, where I graduated with a degree in business economics and a minor in accounting, ready to jump into the world of finance. So since 1998, I've lived in New York City, came here to work on Wall Street, and have been here ever since. Absolutely love it. I'm also a mom of 3. I have 2 kids in college, one at Parsons, one at Duke, and one who is going into her sophomore year in high school. So busy as a mom and a finance professional, but love what I do, and so excited to tell you guys a little bit more about the industry that I work in.
Amazing. And I guess with the current climate, especially with COVID and everything else going on, where do you see startups and new businesses headed? I know that you said that you've worked with a lot of different types of startups. So I think what types of problems and solutions do you think will come about now?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting time for the types of businesses in our portfolio, given that we focus on technology and technology enabled. So we've seen lots of the companies that we've invested in and that we've built relationships with that are coming to the market that have technology solutions actually grow and gain traction much more quickly than they were expecting. So I'll give you a few great examples. We have one company called Forte Fit that we just completed an investment in over the previous quarter. They had an amazing business that would essentially allow any boutique studio to create their own Peloton-like experience.
Wow.
And so while I'd actually had a relationship with the founder, I want to say for at least 5 years, and we'd actually started diligencing this particular opportunity on her latest pivot last summer, we were really worried about adoption risk, right? So as you might know, a lot of the fitness studios got burned by ClassPass coming in, putting technology into their industry and really sort of ruining all of their business models. So I knew that they would be very wary about adopting a new technology. Most people who run fitness studios, aren't business people. They're former yoga instructors, former personal trainers, people who just are much more about relationships and aren't sure about integrating technology into their companies. So we were really worried about adoption risk. And then as soon as, obviously the restrictions were implemented with shelter in place for COVID, this technology actually became really essential to helping those businesses stay in business, generate revenue, and maintain their relationship with their clients. So all that adoption risk kind of went out the window due to COVID and the crisis, which was actually a huge boon for this company's technology and caused them to have an enormous spike in growth which increased their ability to raise money very quickly. So sometimes it can be a positive, sometimes it can be a negative. We have another company called MadeBot that has been in our portfolio even longer than Gooroo. And they have been really amazing because they produce an automated, kind of like a commercial grade Roomba, which they were originally using for hospitality. So on the one hand, they certainly ran into some trouble in that, all of the hotels were closed and, not sure when they were going to be able to pick up contracts with vendors and suppliers. But on the other hand, the whole, importance of cleaning, right, and contactless cleaning apparatus has become even more valuable. So we've seen a company like that, which might have had some challenges, actually benefit. So from the standpoint of existing businesses that are able to figure out how they use their technology solutions to address some of the challenges of the crisis, there's great opportunity. One thing that I will say is from the perspective of brand new startups that, are maybe pre-product or pre-revenue, they are probably going to have a little bit more trouble getting off the ground because so many existing businesses are trying to figure out how to pivot, how to improve their models, how to better penetrate their market. And so they're going back to their investor bases for more money, for follow-on capital to either ride out the storm or figure out how they can better penetrate their markets with their technology and need additional capital. So it is making things a bit more challenging for brand new companies to create relationships with brand new investors.
Great. Yeah, I should definitely try out both and see both, especially just because for fitness, I am just in my house and I haven't found any type of solution yet. So that's definitely
Forte Fit, FORTE Fit. You can go on their website. It's very cool.
Yeah, I'll admit I did use ClassPass, so maybe I'll make that transition as well. And I think at Gooroo, we always believe the importance of mentorship and lifelong learning. And you mentioned that right now you've stayed really proactive with the Columbia University community. Could you tell us what role has educators and mentors played in your life, and how have you sort of returned that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I am definitely an academic at heart. I loved going to school. I love being part of the university community. Unfortunately I did my undergrad, at UCLA, so I can't really, since I'm here in New York, I can't really spend a lot of time there. But I would certainly say that, maintaining my relationships within the Columbia Business School community has been really key. And there are, several people in faculty there, as well as alumni there that have been mentors to me. I can think of loads of folks who've helped me through university connections. And then also, when we think about mentorship, it's not always necessarily based on, this particular person, who's older than me, more experienced, always being the mentor, but even just having peer mentors. And I think, especially as you get older, really maintaining relationships with people who are, in your age group or even, younger, that can, participate in the industry that you're in, that can, tell you what's going on, add value, help you build your network of relationships. So I would say that, mentorship is really critical. And maintaining relationships with people, over time can be really helpful to you as you build your career, whether you're looking to go deeper in your current career or you're looking to pivot into something else.
Great. Yeah. And I think a lot of our viewers are younger students, and maybe they haven't really had the chance to really network or even how to find a mentor. What do you think are some of the first steps that they can take to maybe take that jump and put themselves out there?
Yeah, so, I think that's a great question, because certainly when people are on the younger side, there seems to be very much a focus on the idea of networking means, you're somehow going to find somebody that's, older or more experienced than you, and, they're going to take you under their wing and somehow, and that's basically how you grow the network. So I do see this kind of concept of networking, when folks are getting out of college, sometimes being a little bit counterproductive, right? Because really networking has to kind of come out of authentically generated relationships. So number one, just remember that your most valuable network is probably going to be within your peer group. right? So making sure that you identify people within your own peer group that you think are going to be successful members of your community as you develop your career, and really maintaining positive, productive, and constructive relationships with them, I would say is number one. And then number two, for expanding your network outside of your peer group, towards people who are above you, a great way to do it is by attending events, attending conferences, and just becoming more integrated into the community that you wish to be part of. A wonderful way to do that is by, volunteering maybe to, participate in something, right? So if there's a conference going on and, maybe there's some people involved in that conference that, you'd love to get to know better, maybe you can volunteer to be one of the people that, hosts the panelists in the green room or something like that, right? And then you can sort of build a more authentic relationship, because what I see a lot of people doing is they attend a conference and then, right after it's over, they kind of, bum rush the panelists to hand out their card. Nothing's going to come from that, right? Number one, I know usually when I'm in, panel season, I'm doing, at least one of these per day. And as soon as the thing is over, I'm usually kind of like rushing to get out the door. And, it's not really, it's wonderful that person's had the opportunity to hear me speak, but, from the perspective of actually like creating a network, you're probably not going to get that authentic relationship. So find out some ways that you can, find opportunities to interact with the people that you want to interact with on a more authentic, beneficial level to both parties. And, certainly, hopefully you all know this by now, it's very unlikely you're going to be successful just saying, oh, hey, let's get coffee. I want to pick your brain. Like, people generally don't have time for that. So, build your relationships in an authentic way, network in an authentic way, always add value, and don't forget the value of your peer group relationships. I can tell you from my own class of Columbia Business School alone, there have been several people, in my own class below me and above me and in my class who have already, started and sold multi-billion-dollar companies. So you don't always have to look above to create a network, and really appreciate that. And then, the next thing that I would say regarding, sort of the ability to network with people who are maybe outside of, your personal circle that you're sort of trying to, maybe people who are a little bit senior to you, things like that, is to figure out how you can be helpful to them. Sue, I love the fact that you're doing this. This kind of reminds me of one of my portfolio companies also set up a podcast where they scheduled interviews. They're in, healthcare technology. So they scheduled interviews with all of the top healthcare technology investors. And by doing those interviews and those podcasts, he was actually able to build the relationship with all these VCs that he wanted to invest in his next round. So I would never underestimate the power of setting up your own YouTube channel and doing some interviews, and using the ability to give that person that you're trying to reach their own platform as a vehicle to develop a relationship with them.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Erica. And I guess from your vast experience for the past numerous years, what has made a good challenge for you? And how do you define success?
Yeah, well, certainly everything that I've ever done has been challenging, that's for sure. I think that one of the biggest challenges that I've had during my career, and, I think is really the biggest challenge for almost anybody, is, managing other people, right? So growing an organization, managing other people, making sure that, whatever you're trying to achieve, that you're able to empower and get other people excited along the way. I'd say that, that's the number one skill set that we look in founders, is the ability to do that, because it's probably the most challenging. And as far as, successes that I've had, I feel really blessed to be in the industry that I'm in. I've worked in finance, for 22 years now. And for, the first 8 years or so, I was in public market finance, and, never really felt a good sort of ethical fit with exactly what I was doing. And I, tried a lot of different things within traditional investment banking and really didn't find a great fit until I got to the early stage. So for me, part of the success of what I do is really loving what I do, like being able to work with numbers, but also being able to work with people and being able to do something that I think is really adding value in society.
Great.
So that's success.
Great. Yeah. And I think what we hear a lot in terms of in business today is not being afraid to fail. And I know that you mentioned a lot of everything can be a challenge, but could you tell us about a time where you maybe thought that you failed and how you were able to take away from that experience?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, certainly everyone, everyone has loads of failures. Let me think of a specific time where I really thought that I failed at something. Um, I did have a situation where, and, I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily say this was like my own failure, but it was a good learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
The company that I started, I had negotiated the sale of the company to an outside buyer, and the sort of two folks that were representing the company, the purchaser, basically. One of them was, kind of a former investment banker, kind of an upstanding guy. And then the other one he was a bit of like a marketing dude, just sort of a little of a slick guy. And I negotiated the sale of this business to them, and had all of the agreements signed and everything. And after a few months, the sort of trustworthy guy told me that he was leaving because he didn't feel comfortable there anymore. And the slick guy was sort of now in charge of finalizing the transaction. And of course, wanted to do everything possible to kind of like screw me out of our agreement. So, I think that was a real challenge, and somewhere where I kind of felt like I failed in, executing that transaction because, I just didn't know better at the time, but to realize that, when you engage into business with a team or an organization, you probably want to make sure that all of the people are above board and not necessarily just rely on, that guy seems like he's really trustworthy and good. I've got red flags about the other one, but I'm sure this guy, can step in and will hold his word. So, that was a really interesting challenge, and, something where, it didn't go as I had hoped. But I certainly learned from, that failure. But, to be honest, with investing and with, having my own businesses, failure happens constantly. So, it's like there's some succeeding, there's some failing, you're never going to be succeeding 100%. That's just life, particularly, if you're in business for yourself.
Got it. And I think is there sort of a life mantra or something that sort of guides you always, both in your professional life, but also in your personal life, both with your family and just how to stay happy or just enjoy your life?
Yeah, so, I think that the mantra that I probably really started adopting maybe 5 years ago is just don't ever do anything that you don't want to do. If you don't want to do something, you shouldn't do it. So often people do things that they don't want to do, and that is usually the cause of all problems. And for, a large part of my life, I probably did agree to do a lot of things that I didn't want to do. And, that makes you unhappy, right? So just remember that, usually if you're unhappy, it's because you agreed to do something that you don't want to do. So really simple life lesson. Don't do things that you don't want to do. Only do things that you want to do. And don't feel guilty about it, because, timing is happening, on sort of the universe's time. When it's right for you to do something is when you're going to do the thing. So, don't put pressure on yourself. Don't stress yourself. Everything happens in its own right time. Don't try to force yourself into things. Sort of feel out for the path of least resistance and the things that you want to do. And that's probably the right path.
Yeah, I love that. I think a lot of people sort of feel obligations that they have to do something, whether it's work, whether it's personal relationships. But I think doing that is really important to make sure that you stay happy yourself. And I guess last question that I have is, what advice do you have to students who are facing sort of the uncertainty of the world today, whether they just graduated out of college or they're thinking about going to school right now or they're going into the professional world? What's sort of a piece of advice that you would give to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think a big piece of advice for students who are just graduating, who are looking for that opportunity is, you're probably type A, you're probably very driven, this is a challenge for everything to kind of be on pause and for opportunities to be limited. But, it's certainly happened before. My husband, he graduated from college in, I guess, like 1992-ish, right in the middle of like a huge recession, where nobody was able to get jobs. He, I think probably for the first year was like looking for something, and then, took a job that wasn't really in the industry exactly where he wanted to be. And then after, I guess 2 years after graduation, he started in investment banking, and he's been in, which was the career that he wanted to be in. And he's been in that, ever since, right, for over 25 years and very successful. So, there are always bumps in the road. This is a structural one. So, just realize that everybody's going through it. You're not alone. It's happened before for other reasons. It's not going to be a long-term impediment to your success. So, just try and stay focused. Try to use the time the best that you can. Try to use it constructively to read more, educate yourself more, do some of the things, that you think are enjoyable, and really sort of take time to maybe sort of build some of the relationships that can possibly pay off, once we're able to get a little bit back to normal life. And then I'd also, think about using this time to explore some things, that you might have wanted to do, but didn't feel that you had the time to do. So, if and when we get back to sort of full speed ahead, I think everyone's going to look back upon this pause time and really sort of appreciate the fact that they had time to do some of the things that, they otherwise would not have. So in any situation, going into it with gratitude is always going to help you come out of it in the best possible direction.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Erica, for all of your insights and your advice to our viewers.
You're welcome.
It's been really impactful, and I hope that all of our users are able to sort of take all of this and put it and apply it to their lives. So thank you again, and for all of you watching today, you can go ahead and look at our other Gooroo live classes on our website if you ever want to see more and learn more. Otherwise, thank you so much.
Oh wait, can I say one more thing to the listeners?
Yeah, of course.
So, any of you guys that are interested in learning more about venture capital and investing in venture capital, there is an amazing 1000 Angels YouTube channel where we have an entire investor training library full of lectures on various important topics that could be useful to you in the future. So if you do find yourself with some time on your hands and you're figuring out what are resources where I can learn, go to the 1000 Angels YouTube channel, check out our investor training playlist, and subscribe to get notified about new offerings. So thanks, Sue.
Amazing. Yeah, and we'll put that link in there right after this so that all of our viewers can go ahead and check that out. All right. Thanks, everyone.